I call this meeting of the South Redford Board of Education together at 6:30. And we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is roll call. Could you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Anthony Johnson.
Present.
Daniel Winston.
Present.
Misha Early.
Present.
Lori Hicks.
Present.
Cheryl Flusher.
Present.
Amanda Flesch, present. Shirley Tolliver.
Present. Next item on the agenda is approval of agenda. Are there any corrections to the agenda? There are none. The agenda will be as written. Next item on the agenda is superintendent communications. Mr. Bob.
Thank you, Madam President. Congratulations are in order for two of our elementary school teachers. Jessica Mail, 5th grade teacher at Jane Addams Elementary, as well as Sarah McGuire, 4th grade over at Vandenberg Elementary, as the two of them have been selected to serve as two of the 24 fellows statewide for the Michigan Science Teachers Association. So congratulations to the two of them. As this selection as part of the MSTA's initiative, related and referred to as Elevating Educator Voices for High Quality Science Education, which is in collaboration with Michigan Math Science Leadership Networks. Both Jessica as well as Sarah have been teaching for many years, and as many board members know, their passion for teaching elementary school science is well known throughout South Redford. Both have been honored with recognitions for their teaching and their involvement in community projects, as well as contributions to science education, not only in South Redford, but outside of South Redford. This recognition highlights their dedication to advancing science education and empowering fellow educators in the classroom when we think about science. As fellows, both Jessica and Sarah will participate in professional learning with award-winning authors to support science sense-making with high-quality integrated literacy skills for our students. It's with this initiative that they will also have the opportunity to engage nationally with other recognized science educators across the country to share their insights and experiences, which will foster an even more collaborative environment for our students when we think about science education across South Redford and across the great state of Michigan. Through Elevating Educator Voices, this initiative aims to raise continued awareness about the importance of high-quality science education for our students and to continue to build a network of supportive educators across the nation and engage communities in advocating for continued science instruction. So hats off to both Jessica Mail as well as Sarah McGuire for this prestigious award from the Michigan Science Teachers Association and being selected. So hats off to the two of them. Also, would like to congratulate and thank Fisher Elementary School teacher, Mr. Michael Kanda, for once again coordinating another successful co-drive for the students here in South Redford, not only at Fisher, but across the district. It's been several years now where Mr. Kanda continues to be instrumental in the partnership with the Knights of Columbus to provide coats for several students within the South Redford School District that need coats this winter. So much appreciation to Mr. Kanda. And then also, special thank you to the entire Fisher staff. As I mentioned the other day, their continued efforts in preparing the new learning spaces of Fisher's brand new wing are certainly noteworthy. And so all throughout the course of the week last week and even prior to and then continued over the weekend, their efforts to prepare the spaces for students today deserve to be noted and celebrated. And so talk about teamwork. Seeing the Fisher staff prepare the spaces for our students today was nothing short of remarkable, none of which would be possible without the incredible efforts of Project Lead Carson Williams, as well as Kelly Ferguson, who's here tonight from Bark Mallow, Both Carson and Kelly were instrumental in making sure that spaces were ready, but just all the ongoing efforts, several years in the making to the moment of opening the new wing today over at Fisher, coupled with the many efforts from Michelle Kearns as well. Without the three of them, we wouldn't be opening the new space today. And so I had a chance to interact with some of the students this morning, as well as Vice President Early, and to hear the comments from students and staff and the excitement surrounding the new spaces was nothing short of invigorating. I had an opportunity to interact with one of the classrooms, and hearing the excitement from students, approximately 12 or so students chimed in with what they appreciate most about the new space, and they had only been in the new space for approximately a half hour, and were super eager to enjoy the new cafeteria for lunch. I believe the highlight came from one of the students when they just could not get over how spacious the new areas were. So, which was also a very proud moment for the teacher, Mrs. McBroom, to hear her students use descriptive language to describe the new spaces. And certainly none of this would be possible also without the continued support, and also from each and every single one of the board members that are at the table. It's a long time in the making. So without the board's support, this moment would not have been possible. A long time in the making, approximately 5 years or so. And to see it happen today was outstanding. So that concludes my communications this evening, Madam President.
Thank you. How about that? Isn't that great? Let's celebrate. Next item on the agenda is board communication. Do I have any board members? Anyone? Well, I'd like to congratulate Lori Hicks, Misha Early, and Cheryl Flesher for their re-election on November the 5th. Let's give them a hand. Next item on the agenda is comments from the audience. Are there any? No comments from the audience. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a board member willing to adopt the consent agenda?
To the chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move the adoption of the following resolution, please.
Do I have a support?
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Flesher and supported by Mrs. Hicks. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? 7 ayes, 0 nays. Resolution adopted. Next item on the agenda is SREA, SROPA, SRF reports. Well, it looks like
I think I'm alone.
soon.
And is this where I'm coming?
Yes.
This is new since the last time I've been here. Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I have a few communications. Some of these most of them came from when we were supposed to present last month. So I changed a little wording in some, but Rosanna Goodwin over at Pierce says this year is getting off to a great start at Pierce. They hosted the open house a while ago. We're excited to see so many families. The students also enjoyed their first activity night of the year and had a great time. And they just recently had parent-teacher conferences and said the students are working hard to get on track. Go Eagles.
All right.
At Vandenberg, the office is from Erica Wilson. The office at Vandenberg is a bustling place this time of year. We started by receiving 69 new students, placing them, getting their parents situated with instructions and passwords for Parent Connect, and access to Jumpstart paperwork. Erica says, I can't even begin to tell you how many phone calls and emails this took. In addition to fielding questions from the parents of our 331 students and ordering supplies for staff, we began preparations for a building-wide field trip on October 3rd to Three Cedars Orchard. 150 volunteer registrations were sent to Nikki Ogden for processing. 323 payments were made through school pay. 14 deposits were made from school pay to the bank to be reconciled in our internal account. It was a huge undertaking, but we made it. 399 students, staff, and parents attended the trip. That's awesome.
Wow, that's great.
October and November is also MICR season for the immunizations, and that was completed for both GSRP preschool and grades K through 5. Preschool had finished with 97% compliance and grades K to 5 with 98%. And many letters were sent home to parents, emails, phone calls for those that hadn't turned their immunizations in yet to get to those percentages, which are very good. In the office, along with taking temperatures, administering Band-Aids, and manning the office, Erica's preparing for 5th grade camp, which is scheduled for March 17th through the 21st. She'll be setting up a payment plan in school pay so families can make payments toward the cost of the $250 camp fee. Another amazing year is underway at Vandenberg. From the Media Center at Vandenberg, Betsy Lepak said they hosted a free book fair she said last month, so that might have been in September, but they, every student received a drawstring backpack and 5 books for free.
Nice.
She's also finishing, and I had to call her today to find out exactly what all of this meant. I figured it out, but she said, I'm finishing the genreification of the fiction section at the LLC. And I said, is the LLC the Library Learning Commons? Yes. I said, does this mean you're making sections instead of just everything being alphabetized? And she said, yes. So fiction, nonfiction, fantasy. She started it at the beginning of last year and is still working on it. It's a much bigger project than she thought it was, but you should go check it out when she's done. It's probably going to be great. Thurston, the Nest at the Innovation Center has launched and is now servicing the community and South Redford staff. We're so proud of the work that Chef Tony, Chef Leo, and the students are doing. Winter sports, wrestling, girls and boys basketball, bowling, competitive cheer, boys swimming are in full swing. The bowling team is having a fundraiser at Mod Pizza on December 10th. College visits have begun already. The next visit is with Eastern Michigan on December 10th during seminar. Counselors are working with students to make sure they're signing up for Naviance, which helps students with college and career readiness. Thurston Choir concert is December 17th, and the band concert is the 19th at 7. Progress reports are will be available for families on December 19th. And Monique wants to wish all staff and students a happy Thanksgiving break. My office. Always busy place, a lot of work to do, but I just want to talk about our staffing. Our office has experienced tremendous change this year, with 2/3 of us, that's out of 3 people, being replaced this year. And I will say it has been extremely smooth. I'm very happy the new staff. Kyla Page did an amazing job as interim director while we searched for a permanent replacement. She addressed everything that came out, figured out every problem that came across, every task. Even when she didn't have any idea what it was about, she called people that she could get answers from, and she got it worked out. And I know her. I've worked with her, but not this closely. I loved it. Tried real hard. We tried real hard to just, don't you want to just go on the other side of the interview table and take this position? She has a passion for working directly with the kids, and I'm glad she does. And she still gets to work with us on Wednesdays, so that's good. As you know, Shirley Ashford was hired as our permanent Director of Student Services coming from Harper Woods. She hit the ground running with Kyla. Kyla dragged her all over the district for 2 weeks. Like, I barely saw them. She ran her around like crazy, meeting staff, seeing the specialty programs, the ASD, the CrossCat, all those programs. Attended meeting after meeting in and out of the district. It was a whirlwind of a couple of weeks, and then Kyla went back to her assistant principal job, and Shirley and I are settling into our working relationship, and we are very much enjoying working with each other, or so she says. I know I am. We are finding we have a lot in common. We have shared a lot of personal information with each other, which is not something that I do with people this quickly. Mac Mohammed is our new district psychologist. He replaced Sheila Corbatch after her second retirement last year. And I'm going to be honest, I was not looking forward to someone coming into that position and going into Sheila's office. I was like, why, if Sheila could wait one more year, because when we're at Fisher, it will only be the director and I in that office, and I won't have to get used to another new person being right in my office with me. And I am very close with Sheila. I've worked with her for over 15 years. And I had no idea what to expect. This was a lot of change for me. However, within just a few days, literally a few days, I feel like Mac and I have known each other for years. We work well together, we laugh together every day. We're really enjoying that working relationship. When Shirley started, she said, "How long have you guys known each other?" He's like a month. She was shocked. He's brought some change to policy and streamlined some things in the evaluation process. He's keeping all of us on our toes. He's young, he knows all the new guidelines, and I am just very much enjoying working with him and Shirley. So we're a new team, including Kyla, and I'm loving it. That's it.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, accept financial audit report.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mickey to introduce our guest this evening from Raymond.
This is Dan Merritt. He is here to present us. He was the head of the audit that was performed by Raymond. Raymond, as you know, this is their first year with us, and he is here to present the audit results.
Thanks, Nikki. I appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. As Nikki mentioned, this is our first year being the district's financial auditor. Raymond is a full-service accounting firm with over 1,000 employees across 14 offices in 3 different states. We audit approximately 50 school districts in the state of Michigan, and we dedicate about 125,000 client service hours to public sector entities every year, which includes school districts, cities, townships, counties, basically anyone that has to report under GASB or Governmental Accounting Board standards. Tonight, we'll be walking through a couple of things. I'll just briefly introduce the audit team that worked on the school district's audit. I'll talk my way through the required board communications, thank you very much, Jason, both for the financial audit and for the single audit, which is the grants audit. We'll talk about briefly some of the overall financial results. And then finally, I'll close by talking about both upcoming and accounting pronouncements and also sort of the funding status for school districts in the state of Michigan in the upcoming year. Afterwards, I'll be happy to take any questions you might have, though feel free to just yell as well. People on your team, that's of course me as the senior manager for the audit, but as a senior manager, I have someone who looks over my shoulder and signs all of my work. That's Nate Balderman, he's the engagement principal. And of course, Shelby Bailey is the wonderful audit supervisor that worked with me and directed by the district staff. So board communications, a couple of things we're required to talk about. First is what kind of opinion did we give on the June 30th, 2024 financial statements? We gave an unmodified opinion. That's what you hope for from us. You need that for the state of Michigan to keep getting your state aid. In the audit business, this is called a clean opinion. It means that we think the financial statements are reliable in all material respects. Second, we're required to talk about any changes in accounting policy. The district adopted, as required, GASB standard number 100, which was applicable. Yes, we're up to triple digits in GASB standards, and no, we don't want any more. GASB standard 100 talks about how we report changes within the entity. This year, the district broke out the Student Activities Fund from being part of the general fund to its own separate fund. This is sort of in accordance with what NBE recommends. Didn't change anything, didn't adjust cash flow, nothing like that. Just meant that the district had to adopt some of the reporting provisions of GASB 100. So just, it is a reporting issue only, doesn't really affect a significant portion of the statements. Third, we have to deem whether any significant estimates made by management were reasonable. We assessed all of those estimates, deemed them reasonable. The most significant estimates in the district's financial statements are things that you would have no control over because they affect the district's pension and OPEB liabilities through MIPSers. There are all sorts of estimates that go into determining how much are you going to have to pay future employees for benefits, whether that be health benefits or pension benefits. All that is done at ORS and just affects the district. So those were probably the most significant estimates in the financial statements. Before we have to talk about if there are any difficulties encountered dealing with management, we of course had no difficulties dealing with management. Every question that we asked was answered. If we asked for support, the support was provided. 5, we did not note any material misstatements. This is good. This means that there were no significant adjustments required. We did pass on 2 adjustments, which is called a SOAP, a Schedule of Adjustments Passed. Some auditors call it a PAGI, a Past Adjustment Journal Entry Schedule. Basically, that means that there were things that were simply moved into the next fiscal year or related to the previous fiscal year, which weren't significant enough for the accounting team to be forced to correct. And so we generally will pass on those. I'm happy to talk about those in detail, but generally past adjustments are considered not a big deal, so I won't go into that unless someone decides to ask me to go through the details of it. 6, we did not identify any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or management letter comments with respect to the financial statement audit, and I usually say if an unmodified audit is a clean audit, an unmodified audit with no deficiencies is a squeaky clean audit. So that's very good. Second, we talked about the single audit. The single audit is bound in with the financial statements in the very back, but it is the grant audit for the district. Ever since 1984, all governments receiving federal funding have been required to have single audits if you would spend more than $750,000 in a particular year. So instead of being audited by the Department of Education and the Department of Transportation and HUD and anyone that happened to give you grant money, you get one audit every single year. So that's a single audit. We give an unmodified opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. That's the CFA. That is basically the list of what money did you expend. We did issue one finding on the ESSER fund, which was a repeat of the same type of finding related to Davis-Bacon compliance as with last year. Now, I want to be careful here when I talk about what that was a repeat finding. It was a repeat finding in the same compliance area, but the issue wasn't exactly the same. So in last year, basically the issue was that none of the Davis-Bacon compliance requirements had been complied with. So it's basically you didn't do any of the things you were supposed to do. There are 2 primary things you are supposed to do when it comes to Davis-Bacon compliance, and oddly enough, neither of those things are pay prevailing wage. You are supposed to, 1, make sure that in the contract with the contractor, it says the contractor must follow prevailing wage requirements, so that's checkbox 1. And checkbox 2 is you're supposed to get certified payroll, which is something very specific. It's called Form WH-357, and you have to obtain that payroll supposedly before you actually make payments to subcontractors. Now, the district didn't actually pay any labor through ESSER. However, the state came back to us and said, well, even though you didn't pay labor, which is what this would generally apply to, if you installed any equipment that had labor attached, even if that labor was not technically charged to the grant, you're supposed to still be complying with the provisions of Davis-Bacon. And the one thing the district couldn't get before the audit was issued was the Form WH-357, not from the general contractor, but from a subcontractor who had some issues with staff turnover and couldn't provide it in time. So the district's first was sort of don't issue the audit on time and wait for the subcontractor, or just issue the audit and take the finding and go and deal with the state of Michigan in sort of the aftermath. So that's kind of where things stand. As far as follow-up compliance, I have not seen the state actually do much with respect to any of these Davis-Bacon compliance follow-ups. In talking to them, they generally feel as though, while we have to write it up as auditors, they've usually said it is not a significant compliance issue, but they require us to report on it. So we can't say anything beyond we wrote it up, we identified what the issue was, the WH357 wasn't able to be provided timely. The district will then have to deal with the state in terms of follow-up on that finding in the future. Again, I have not seen the state claw back money or deliver any type of consequence for this type of finding in my experience. So I'm happy to talk more about that if anyone would like, but that's sort of a brief contextual rundown of the situation. Moving on, general fund and governmental funds. So this is a quick overview in tabular form of the revenue and expenditure reports for the district's two major funds, which would be the general fund and the capital projects fund related to the 2021 bond issuance, and all non-major funds. So you can see that the general fund, and we'll talk about this more contextually in future slides, ate up about $2.8 million of fund balance. The 2021 Capital Projects Fund ate through about $26.9 million of fund balance. Now, I'd like to point out that the Capital Projects Fund exists to be spent. So eating up fund balance in a capital projects fund that results from bond money isn't necessarily a concern, right? That money comes to you, and then you spend it out, and you trade cash for future buildings, capital assets, that type of thing. So I don't want anyone to see that big negative number and go, oh no, there's a problem, right? And non-major funds added to fund balance to the tune of about $1.3 million. So just a summary of where funds ended at the end of 24. Again, general fund ended down about $2.8 million. 2021 Capital Projects Fund used up a significant component of the cash investments available, and special revenue funds increased ever so slightly over last year. So the general fund, this is what spending and revenue have looked like over the last 4 years. You can see in 21 and 22, the district added slightly to fund balance. And then in 23 and in 24, the district took some money out of fund balance. Now, how can we sort of contextualize how much was taken out and what that sort of looks like on balance? Well, you can look at the coverage ratio. So this is sort of the idea of, if you had to go just on savings, so imagine that the fund balance is your savings account. If you had to go just on savings, how many months of expenditures could you fund just out of fund balance? You can see that in 2021, that would have been about 2.7 months. And right now, in 2024, you would have about 1 month left in fund balance. Now, I try not to couch these things in terms of good, bad, right? It's not the job of the auditor to tell the board or management how to spend or how to manage their budget. But in context, generally speaking, the GFOA recommends, that's the Government Finance Officers Association, to have a sustainable balance of about 10%, 15%. That's sort of like the basic stable minimum of this is good fund balance. Generally speaking, that's because it allows for good cash flow and you don't have to worry as much about potential unforeseen expenditures. For school districts, this actually makes a ton of sense because you go for 2 months without getting any state aid payments. Now, school districts also have another tool available to them, which I believe South Redford is in, which is state aid notes. So you can sort of balance the cash flow impact of not having as much fund balance by using short-term borrowing available through the state. But it is a good point to be thinking about in the future. If you've been taking money out of savings for a few years, it might be time to be thinking about how can you put money back into savings. The district also has about $57.1 million in general obligation bonds outstanding at the end of fiscal year 24. You repaid or refunded about $13.25 million in the current year and made all regular payments on outstanding bond obligations. Next, it's probably good to spend at least a minute talking about what the funding situation is like in Michigan. Generally speaking, over the last number of years, the state has provided increased general fund funding through a per pupil increase. And while there's been a fairly democratic blue House, legislature, governor, they've continued to sort of pump money into the state foundation allowance. Now, I've been saying sort of the last year or two, if that changes, right, if it flips red, they tend to spend slightly less. So foundation allowance tends to go up less in years when Republicans control any portion of the legislature. That's not a political statement, it's just liberals like to spend, conservatives tend to not like to spend as much. This year, the governor did something interesting, which was, well, between the governor and the legislature, I should say, which is did not increase foundation payments, instead backed off on the lever of how much districts had to pay in for retirement, specifically the UAAL, the unfunded actuarial liability. What that means is when you're paying out benefits for staff, you don't have to pay quite as much into MIPSers this year for those staff. So if you think about it, that's going to help districts that have a lot of very long tenured staff that have big benefits payments for retirement, and it's not going to help districts as much that have newer, younger, less tenured staff on their payroll. The governor's office and MDE have suggested that they think this equates to about a $400 per pupil increase. So if you saw like last year it was $458, this year they think they're doing approximately $400 per student, and that it's about equal to a 4.2% foundation allowance increase. But again, that's not going to be all things held equal. If the previous type of funding was primarily based on student count, this type of funding is primarily based on how long tenured your teachers are. So it's just a different way to pull the lever of expenditures versus revenue. And again, this drives the expenditure side of your budget more than it drives the revenue side of your budget going forward. Finally, it's probably a good idea for us to talk about the COVID funding cliff. When I say the COVID funding cliff, I mean that there really isn't any more COVID funding available. The district spent out the remaining portions of its ESSER fund and really only has some, as of June 30th, only has some very, very small amounts of ESSER funding or COVID-related funding left to spend. So I've been kind of mentioning to every board that I've been doing a presentation for, really can't expect any more new COVID money at this point. That's pretty much all gone. It's something to be thinking about when you're creating budgets during the fiscal years. Finally, upcoming and accounting pronouncements. We call this more work for Mickey in the finance department. Next year, the district will have to implement GASB 101 compensated absences. I'm only going to focus on that one because that's the one that actually might affect numbers. The other one, certain risk disclosures, and the one in 26, financial reporting model improvements, only affect disclosure within the financial statements. Basically, the GASB has said that the past way of recording compensated absences, which is the estimate of what you might have to pay teachers if the district shut its doors tomorrow and had to pay everybody out on their sick, vacation, whatever their contract says that they would have to get paid on if we were to terminate everyone tomorrow, we accrue an estimate of that in the financial statements. Going forward, that number is going to go up because the GASB has said we think it's conceptually purer to also include in that estimate compensated absences that you're going to let people use. So if people are taking that time, not just what you would have to pay them if they walked out the door. Does this provide any useful information for the board or for decision makers? Probably not. But what does mean the district will have to follow that new standard, we'll have to implement it accurately, and of course we'll try to help provide guidance to the district on exactly how to do that. So with that, I think we have gotten through all of the prepared slides, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
I have one. When we were looking at our general fund balance, and you're saying in there that it's recommended that it be 10 to 15%. Where do we currently stand?
You stand at about 9 point, oh, this one doesn't have a, can't highlight it. At the bottom right there, you can see that you stand at about 9.17% of total expenditures. So you're just outside of sort of the basic recommended range. I'm not necessarily talking about the board's policy on fund balance, because every district has a different policy on what minimum fund balance should be. I'm just talking about the GFOA standard recommendations. 10 to 15% approximates about 2 months of fund balance.
questions?
Well, if there's no other questions, I'd just like to thank Mickey and her team for all of their hard work in getting the audit done. As someone who does audits all the time, I know it's not easy. It's a lot of hard work, especially a first-year audit with some new staff, also working with brand-new auditors. So we really appreciate all the work that Mickey and Lisa and Kathy and everyone else on that team put in to make sure the audit got issued on time and to work with us to get that done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's a resolution. Do I have a board member willing to adopt the resolution?
Go ahead.
To the chair, I'd like to adopt the following resolution.
Support. It's been adopted by Mr. Winston, supported by Mrs. Early. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? 0 nays, 7 ayes. Resolution adopted. Next item on the agenda. Discuss FES Fisher Elementary School roof replacement project.
Thank you, Madam President. So, with my opening remarks about compliments and celebrations and things to note, our very own Kelly Ferguson has decided to carve out some time with the Board of Education tonight to talk about the upcoming roofing project to take place next at Fisher. So with that, I will turn it over to Kelly.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I don't have the slide, but let you know we went out to bid in September and October to look at, September, October, and in November, to bid out the balance of the roof replacement at Fisher. So currently, right now, we're going to be moving into the north part of Fisher, the first floor area, to start construction work. And over the next few months and next summer, we're going to replace that roof as well as the second floor roof that's left to go. So we went out and we had a good turnout. We had 7 bidders that came in, and William Molnar is our low bidder. They also did part of the roof replacement that we did in summer 2024 at Fisher, or summer 2023, I should say, at Fisher over the gym and the media center. So they're well known in the district. They did the Adams roof replacement as well. So we're confident that they can get the job done. Are there any questions? And that's the last bid for Fisher.
To the chair.
Let's upgrade that, yes.
To the chair.
Yes.
I have 2 questions for you,
Sure,
Kelly.
no problem.
And I might have asked these last time we went through this. What is the roof made out of right now?
So we have, most of it, I believe, is EPDM, so it's the kind of rubberized roof. And we're gonna go back and replace it with the same thing, but it does have a 20-year warranty on it. So it'll last a pretty good long time.
That was gonna be my second
Yeah.
question, was the warranty. You
Yes,
already
yes.
knew, thank you.
And it's nice that we're gonna have like the same contractor doing it.
Yeah.
As opposed to one person involved and all that good stuff.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you.
And I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
You also. Same to you.
Thank you. There you go.
Thanks, Kelly.
I know.
Next item on the agenda is discuss and consider naming of District Facility Innovation Center. Okay. The board established a board policy for commemorating and naming a school facilities. From time to time, the Board of Education may wish to commemorate a school or district facility, gymnasium, swimming pool, athletic field, etc., by means of a plaque naming the facility after a person or some other honor. Such commemoration should be reserved only for those individuals who have made a significant contribution to the enhancement of educational generally or the district in particular, or in the well-being of the district, community, state, or nation. Should the board choose to do so, the new Innovation Center will be named. Okay, we had started discussing this, and we wanted to discuss further because some of our board members were not here, so I'm opening the floor to the board.
To the chair.
Yes?
I have a question, it might be for Jason or maybe even Chris. When we were at the Nest for the breakfast, I saw that the plaque for Shear was still there. Is that going to be hung somewhere? Okay, and then in regards to that having been the name for that building, and now that building is kind of the Innovation Center plus a bunch of other buildings, are we still keeping the Shear name somewhere?
No. But we would hang up the commemorative plaque from that era as a place marker always to have about what was versus the new naming. So in conducting some research, there's no longer direct ties to the naming of the building as Shear, hence bringing it to the board for discussion and consideration about the renaming. So the thought is, once decided upon, we would hang the original placard from the dedication from the Shear building somewhere in the space there, so that it would always be noted in addition to any possible renaming should the board so decide.
Okay. That was just, my question was just making sure we're not like stepping on the toes of some previous resolution or something. I didn't know if that was something the board did way back when or not, or if we were good to go moving forward.
Well, I just don't understand why we, well, I know we had mentioned Brian Galdis, and Christine Holford's name had also been mentioned. So, are there any more? Yes?
We've already named a space after Christine. I would like to see the building be named after Mr. Baldus.
To the chair.
Yes?
I mean, I spoke pretty extensively. I think it should be named after Brian Galdis, and our policy is for a single individual. It's not set up to combine different individuals, and we have already honored Christine Holford, so I'd like to see it be in Brian Galdis' name.
To the chair.
Yes?
I think I'm the only person at this table who does not know Brian for a period of time. I knew Brian for a little bit over the time that I was on board, basically. So I didn't know Brian. So this has been a very challenging thought process for me because I didn't know Dr. Holford very well or Brian. So when we're talking about naming the building, I honestly am thinking about abstaining from voting because I don't feel like my vote would really be a vote on my knowing either of them. I just be voting to vote. So that's kind of where I'm leaning right now, just so everyone understands. I didn't know either of them very well to really say what they did besides what other people have told me. So that has been my challenges. What am I really voting on? Because I didn't know them that well.
Okay. Does anybody want to explain why we came up with Brian Galdis?
So in the resolution if you want someone to read it.
No, I understand what it says, but that's, I didn't know, my time with him was not him being a teacher or principal or any of that thing. So I know that some, people who've been here have a different perspective on Brian than I do. So I probably would just abstain from voting because I don't know either of them, especially Brian, that well to vote on this right now. So just wanted to say that.
Okay.
I have a
Yes.
question. According to our policy and our operations, unless you have a personal reason for not voting, you can't just abstain.
Right.
So
Sure.
I'm just
Okay.
saying what our,
Understood.
Well, one of the reasons that, one of the reasons, and this is what I think, and then I'll ask Cheryl or either someone else to explain. One of the reasons why we had said to name the Innovation Center after Brian is because, first of all, he was basically responsible for getting the bond passed. And he came up with the cafeteria, and he basically put a lot of that together. So that was one of the reasons why. Anybody else want to?
To the chair, I understand that. I guess my perception of Brian is not what everyone else. I guess when Lori talks about personal, I do have some personal reasons why I feel the way I feel, but I guess I don't want to bring that to the table.
Okay.
I guess that's why I'm saying, so Lori, I do have some personal things, but what I don't want to do is make this this about Brian. So that's why I said it is personal for me, but I would rather just abstain than, make it, pull that out on the table and say, well, this is what, I feel, I guess. But if I have to vote, I will. But I would rather not do that because everyone speaks very highly of Brian and I would rather not do that. So is that good enough context for me not to abstain? Or do I still?
I would not think so.
Okay.
You have no financial reason not to abstain.
Okay. Well, okay. Fine. I'm not going to get into it, so I'm just going to move on.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
To the chair?
Yes.
I just thought of another question for Jason, so I'm sorry. No matter who is chosen to be the name on the building, is the funding for that wording going to come out of the bond since the Innovation Center is all like bond related?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to put out, what is the will of the board?
Well, the resolution is here, so. Like I said before, I don't have any issue with
I don't
naming it
either.
for Brian. I do know that this was his charge, so.
I'd like to move to adoption of the following resolution.
Okay, is there support?
I support.
It's been moved by Mr. Winston and supported by Mrs. Early.
Madam President,
Yes.
I believe we're looking for
Oh,
some
yeah.
clarity
Just
on
bef-
which resolution.
Correct, just before voting, if you can just clarify which resolution, since there are two in the packet, which one you're voting for.
Okay, so,
I don't see.
I only saw one.
It's two.
No, it's
the
two.
next page.
Oh.
it's two.
Madam President, we prepared both based on the board's previous discussion,
I remember,
and
okay.
so we wanted to have both resolutions prepared in the event that the
Mr.
board.
Gardner, please. I'd like to move to adoption of Mr. Gardner's
Thank you.
name.
Show me where it is.
Right here.
The last page.
This one has Dr.
Yeah, this is the last page, right there.
It has both of them.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, yeah,
Okay. So that was moved by Mr. Winston, seconded by Ms. Early. Roll call vote. Anthony Johnson? Daniel Winston? Lori Hicks?
Aye.
Misha Early?
aye.
Cheryl Flesher?
Aye.
Amanda Flesher, aye. Shirley Tolliver?
Aye,
7 ayes.
thank you. 7 ayes, 0 nays. Resolution to name the Innovation Center, the Brian Gardens Innovation Center is adopted.
To the chair.
Yes.
Follow-up question, when would the official naming take place? Because I know the map and everything would have to change because it still says Shear on it.
So we would begin to execute the resolution that was adopted tonight, starting tomorrow. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And then additionally, I know that this would be our 3rd annual holiday gathering. The recommendation that I would have to the board is that we would have some sort of ribbon cutting like we did with the Dr. Hofer collaboration space 2 years ago, that we would also have that on the evening of December the 9th in conjunction with our holiday gathering for our 3rd annual. If that's the pleasure of the board.
Isn't that also a board meeting night?
It is.
Yes.
So we would look to do that before the board meeting, just as we did with the Dr. Hofer space, as well as the rededication of the Adams.
And the plaque or wording or whatever it is you're getting would be ready that quickly?
It probably will not.
Oh,
It'll be
okay.
temporary. It'll be
Okay, I was
temporary
gonna-
one. It's gonna take some time, yep. And, we'll be working to execute the resolution first thing tomorrow, and we would have some sort of temporary signage, whether it's December 9th or a different date, in the meantime, while we wait for the official signage.
Okay, thank you. Just a fun fact for if you guys want to put this at the ceremony. Brian's high school varsity jacket is at the Redford Museum right
Oh,
now,
how
so we
fun.
could always bring it over.
that's so
It is a
nice.
Thurston Eagles jacket for wrestling.
That would be so cool.
So we
that
did
would be
donate that to the
great.
museum. We could always bring it over for the ceremony.
Oh, that would
Something to
be
think
good.
about.
Dust it off.
To the
He
chair.
probably can still
Yes.
fit in it.
I have a question for Jason. When will you notify Brian of the board's decision?
I would like to do that this evening, if
Okay.
that would be acceptable.
Yes. All righty. Next item on the agenda, comments from the audience. There are none. Next item on the agenda is Plus Delta, Mrs. Davis.
Madam President, we're supporting the board's work this evening, pluses.
To the chair.
Yes?
I appreciate the speed and concise agenda tonight. We're almost done and it's not even 7:30.
Thank you.
And what processes would help the board's work in the future, Deltas?
Well, I have one, not a Delta. I wanted to congratulate Sue. She did a great job. Now you can ask for the Deltas.
What processes would help the board's work in the future? Opportunities for improvement, Delta.
To the chair.
Yes.
The only one that comes to my mind is that Sue was the only presenter of the 3 groups that we have listed. So I was just expecting some of the other groups to report back today.
Did you heard from Mrs. Woods? Did you
I did, and she sends her best on behalf of the South Red River Foundation. She was not able to be here this evening, but she sends her best. And she looks forward to speaking to the board at a future meeting.
I have a comment.
Yes,
So if you have not been to the Nest, I encourage you all to go.
that's right.
I've been there every day. That is- I've got everything on the menu. But it's really good. It's really great. The kids are doing so well.
What was your favorite? What was your favorite thing on the menu?
Monte Cristo and that skillet, the hash brown skillet.
Uh-huh.
And the creme brulee and the chocolate.
Oh,
Everything. Eat everything. But they are, I mean, it's phenomenal.
It
You're
is.
open
Try it
on a
out.
regular daily basis?
Right now it's Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Oh.
10:15 to 11:30. They do carry out.
It is
It's awesome.
fantastic.
I'm never losing weight, so.
And I have
Well, I need to put some on, so.
Right.
Any of it you're
But
willing to give away.
it's so good. I mean, down to the customer service is great. It's just great.
And I
You
have
go.
to say,
Support.
the students are so professional. It
And they
is
can
just
cook, y'all.
amazing.
Because I don't eat everybody's food, but they cook very well.
And Chef Tony did tell me that there's no frozen food.
Right. And the bread, you have to try the bread, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's really good.
So if there's nothing that comes before this board, I adjourn this meeting at 7:26.